I found a very interesting connection between the Euphrates River drying, of course, up of recent and a certain movie that just got released and is still in theaters. It's kind of amazing, actually. There is some rather curious things going on with the Euphrates River and it drying up, as you can see here, from 2020 to 2021, the exact same region. You can see how, what is this? I would say at bare minimum, this is 20 feet, maybe about 20 feet, maybe 15 feet worth of water down in this region. And of course, this is actually part of what the good book talks about. It says that there will be an event, something that happens once this river completely dries up. It talks about 4 angels that will be released. It talks about the kings of the east traversing over it. And as you can see how dry it is. And there's actually some rather amazing videos. You have also it talking about a 200 million man strong, of course, army going across this. Now, looking at this ancient Babylonian city over the Euphrates River, once it dried up, we started seeing some rather curious things. Some areas where they had entrances, things like this. As you can see there, there's actually many of these. And what's amazing is that they found a tomb of Gilgamesh in the Euphrates River. When was that? Let me show you this. And this relates to the movie Black Adam. This movie Black Adam is actually symbolically referring to Gilgamesh. And I'm going to get into it in great detail in this video here. So there's actually a connection between the movie Black Adam and the Euphrates River drying up. Gilgamesh tomb believed to be found. Archaeologists in Iraq believe they may have found the lost tomb of Gilgamesh. And it was actually in Euphrates River. Now, in this expedition has discovered what is thought to be the entire city of Uruk, including where the Euphrates once flowed, the last resting place of the famous king Gilgamesh. And I'm going to be getting into, I actually get into more detail in another video about how important this is and how related it is to the Euphrates River. The fact of the matter is, this is who this guy is essentially representing. And I'm going to get into detail of this movie Black Adam and what it's representing. And actually, it can be seen 2 different ways. It can be seen in a positive light or a negative. Obviously, Gilgamesh would be the negative. But, I mean, you can even see it in another light. We'll be getting into it in this entire video. Also, I should mention about our store. We've just created a new one over on Redbubble. We have a lot of awesome products over here as well. I believe this website's much better than the other one we were using. We have all manner of products, puzzles, cups, shirts, everything with lots of different pictures and slogans. We have here Dragon Mystery, which is a pretty interesting one. Also, we have Hollywood, of course, sucks, and other things like this. Even our wonderful Prez, if you want to get a shirt like that, or even a puzzle with him on it, or anything you want. We actually have like all manner of stuff now that you can get these pictures on. It's just hilarious. Cups, mugs, backpacks, even your socks. I mean, honestly, there's even some sock ones. So link is in the description for all that, folks. Recently, I saw this movie called Black Adam that recently came out in theaters, and noticed there's some rather interesting storyline and patterns in the movie that relate to ancient Egypt and also the good book itself. And actually a lot of rather curious things I discovered in the movie. Could they be referring to some sort of hero that may be more than just a superhero, folks? Yes, indeed, I do think that's the case, but maybe not a good one. Actually, they're telling you a story through this movie and it's not exactly what you think it is. Anyway, we're going to be going over that in this video. First, of course, he is from ancient Egypt. He is a servant, kind of like under the Pharaoh, as we saw with Moses. It's actually on purpose that it mirrors that story. And, of course, he's called Black Adam. His first name was Teth Adam, which refers to a certain letter in the Hebrew, Paleo-Hebrew alphabet, or ancient Hebrew alphabet, that refers to a number of things. It's the 9th letter in the alphabet. We see it in a certain psalm. We're going to be getting into a lot of stuff. The film begins in 2600 BC with a young servant. His name's Teth Adam. And of course, if you're thinking already a little bit, you can start to see some patterns. You've heard of second, Adam. Who is the second Adam, folks? It's the King of Kings, right? Well, that is actually who this guy is sort of representing in some respects, but also maybe not him. Maybe a false version of him. Okay? So we'll be getting into all that here. Of course, he has a son in the movie. The son actually is given the supernatural powers through these wizards called Shazam. And, of course, unfortunately, well, actually, at first, he just gives his power to his father. His father happens to be the Rock. And as soon as he gives him his powers, an arrow is flying towards him, and his father didn't even notice. Next thing you know, his son is, of course, gone. And this turns him into essentially an enraged father who goes around and essentially destroys everything. Pretty much. And of course, he's actually going against a king, an evil king, who actually represents Lucifer in the movie. And it becomes really obvious when you look at the last battle in the movie. If you look at how this guy looks, he literally has a pentagram on his chest. He's got horns. He's red. Kind of hard to mistake who he might be. This is of course, this king. This is who essentially the king becomes, or actually his descendant becomes this character here on the right. And I just found it really curious when I saw the movie. I saw literally this pentagram on a guy. I'm like, that guy looks literally like the devil. So apparently he's fighting the devil at the end of the movie, right? And so that really prompted me to look into this more to figure out what was really going on with this whole movie. Obviously, this guy is got a lot of power. What's really curious, though, is this actually is telling a story about our ancient past, as many movies do. In this case, he is given power from a pantheon of gods, Egyptian gods, ancient Egypt. It literally says it in the movie. It literally says their names. And, of course, this is the Egyptian pantheon of gods, as you can see here. And again, I've mentioned many times on video before that we also have a pantheon. It's called the Divine Council in the good book. No one knows about it, but it's there. You can see it quite evidently in Psalms and in other places. We have a Divine Council, and guess what? These guys right here were at one time part of that Divine Council. The real one. We're talking the real one up there in the highest, of course, heavens. These guys used to be there, and then they fell. Okay? You've heard of Enoch. You've heard of the Watchers. These beings were part of the Divine Council, and they fell. So now they're a false Divine Council. They were essentially gods or demigods. Yes, indeed. They're higher than angels, and they had supernatural powers. And of course, they're not anything remotely the amount of power that the King of Kings has, but you get the idea. They had supernatural powers. And what's curious, of course, is if you look at Revelation, it will talk about beings around the throne that have multiple heads, like this. And I believe what happened is when these other ones fell, they were stuck with whatever head they were with. This is just kind of my thoughts, because they could shapeshift, or they had multiple heads. I think essentially they could shapeshift between different heads or something. this is just kind of my thoughts on it. You can see a bull's head, a lion's head, and sort of like an eagle's head. You see here, sort of an eagle's head, a lion's head. You see what I'm getting at. So you can see also a human head. And on these supernatural beings, I guess and of course they paint themselves as superheroes in movies now, and Marvel and all that kind of stuff. But so when you see these ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, it's literally talking about these beings. And you'll notice they also sometimes have wings. And in this movie, this is what's literally mentioned as giving him powers. I'll show you that in a second here. Here's an example of an Egyptian hieroglyphic showing some of this. But so if you look at the comic story and how it relates to Egypt, it says here, Black Adam is an ancient Egyptian named Teth Adam. And again, this is the 9th Hebrew character in ancient Paleo-Hebrew. And he's chosen by the wizard Shazam. And if you see that scene, it looks literally like the pantheon around him, giving him these powers. And of course, like I said, I think this partially represents Moses in some respects. And of course, the King of Kings is called the second Adam. And he turns into Black Adam. You see what I'm getting at? And I'm going to show you a number of things that have to do with this. It's actually kind of amazing. Like I said, his first name was initially Teth Adam. And the meaning of this, okay, is ninth number of the Hebrew alphabet. 9 is the number of judgment, spirit of truth. The Hebrew letter Teth is shaped like a vessel that contains something good and hides it within. The first time this letter appears in the book of Genesis, it is in the Hebrew term Tov, which means good, and hence to a highest form of divine love. So essentially, like, he's in a low state. He is a servant in Egypt. Reminds you of these people that were, of course, under the Pharaoh. There are a few things to note and break down here. There seems to be a parallel concept, like I said, the 2 Adams that we see in ancient scripture. And of course, the first Adam fell, and the second Adam is the one who redeems. And again, this guy is seen, his name, Teth Adam, means divine love. So it is actually pointing literally to him. It's kind of curious. And of course, you can see here, see if I can zoom in on this. I don't know if I can or not. You can see here it also means snake, which is kind of curious as well. T9, it also means snake, but it also means a divine, spirit of truth, judgment, things of that nature. And you can see in his character, he's clearly a character of judgment in the movie that The Rock plays, Black Adam. And here we have the psalm that essentially has a section called Teth in it. And it's at number 65 verse. Teth, thou hast dwelt with thy servant, O Lord, according to thy word, teach me good judgment and knowledge. So you see here, good judgment. And this entire movie is about Black Adam learning to have good judgment. At first, he's just going around, destroying everything in the movie. But eventually he starts to realize sort of his purpose is more than just that. And of course, like I said, this letter, Teth, means at first judgment, but then becomes spirit of truth. And by the end of the movie, he's sort of like a good guy and understands what his purpose is and all that kind of stuff. So it actually, you can tell they clearly were referring to that when they created this movie. Here you can see in Revelation, you can see the divine council here around the throne. You can see these beings, and I don't think this is probably accurate how this is designed, but they were probably in seats themselves. They are part of the divine council themselves. These were the original beings that were part of the divine council, or maybe beings that were related to that. And like I said, you can see it with the Pharaoh, with the ancient Egypt hieroglyphics. You can see these beings once they have been stuck on Earth, essentially, because they came down on Earth and then they were stuck in this dimension. And of course, the entire religion of ancient Egypt was about resurrecting. You know, we got Osiris, Isis, and Osiris, right? And this movie is also about that as well, by the way. The woman in this movie, and actually we'll be getting into that in a second here. First, though, before I go any farther, I should probably mention about my website. We're going to be getting into a lot of stuff again, and I'm going to actually, we're only a third into this. I'm going to be also making another video over on my other channel as well, God Rules 2, but I wanted to mention, of course, about my website, where I do a lot more videos in this realm. I talk about the Vatican. I've talked about ancient Egypt numerous times, and I think I believe I've kind of figured out and understand what it's really all about. And I've talked about the Great Pyramid, what it is. It's a capstone over essentially another dimension. There's a bottomless, as you would say, pit underneath it. It says that in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And I get into a lot of different stuff over on my website, grvideos.com. And even some of the most recent videos I've even uploaded over here. This one's from literally a day ago or 2 days ago. I've had some rather interesting dreams about our history, and I talk about it here with Joan of Arc, and essentially when Lucifer was brought into the bottomless pit and when he was out. There's a 1,000-year period in the Middle Ages. I talk about it there. I talk about a lot of stuff here. 3 Days of Darkness, which is rather curious as well. I talk about a lot of different topics. Also, I got hundreds more videos in the membership section. It's $4.95 a month. First month is free. Link is in the description. Of course, also food supply, 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description as well. Of course, this sale price here, $6.47, is the same sale price they had 2 years ago. Unlike your supermarkets that have literally double the prices now for everything almost. This is the same price it was 2 years ago. So they are giving you an excellent deal. This is 3 months of food. 3 months. This isn't 1 month. You might have been thinking 1 month. No, 3. That's how much you probably pay right now for a month's worth of food in the supermarket. That's 3 months of food. 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description. I heard it tastes awesome. The pancakes and everything. I actually have a number of boxes here. I haven't actually eaten it, although I've seen other channels talk about trying the food. They said the pancakes are great. Link is in the description for that. And of course, this book here, The Lost Ways, How Your Great-Great-Grandfather Lived Without Electricity, How to Build a Cellar, How to Do Things Around the House, like they did in the old days. And you might need to know how to do soon here, considering the what's going on with the energy prices and that WAR going on. You might want to have this, all these things that I'm mentioning, just in case. Links are all in the description, including gold and silver. Let's get back to the video now. Of course, I found this to be rather curious when you look at this picture here and you look at this picture here. You got these wizards, and they give Teth Adam's son the power, the superhuman powers, and they say what names that they give this power in. And the names that are named are literally beings that were part of the original divine council that fell. And I found that to be rather curious. And, okay, so I found it here. Actually, they said, the council wizards said, the stamina of Shu, the speed of Horus, the strength of Ammon, the wisdom of Zehuti, and the power of Eten, and the courage of Mehen. Again, these are all beings that were part of the divine council. These are actually the Egyptian god pantheon that I showed you earlier. Let's see, where is it at? I got lots of windows open here. These guys, okay? And what's really interesting, I'm going to be getting into more here about. Okay, this is actually from the comic book. This is the lady that brings back the Rock, who is Black Adam. She essentially goes into that underground temple and she reads off and essentially releases him. And her name was, I'm trying to find it here, Adrena Tomez, or Isis. Okay, so she's actually an embodiment of Isis, the Egyptian god. So you got Horus, Osiris, Isis, and here we go. Here she is again. Look at how very similar they look. Literally the same color hair. You can see here, and this isn't from the comic book. This is just a depiction of how she may have looked. More modern look to it. You can see she has wings, and you can see here she has some sort of gold crown, and you can see it looks similar. It doesn't look the exact same, but you get the idea. Maybe they got their idea from some drawing like this. I don't know. But so this literally follows exactly the ancient Egyptian story of how they bring them back. And so Black Adam is literally following this ancient Egyptian practice, okay, for bringing back one of these beings, these watchers that had fallen. Okay, and you can see here this one has a sort of like a dog's head to it. And it's actually kind of convoluted, the story, because it takes them a little while to bring them back, and it's only temporary. He first comes back as one of these birds, and then they do some other weird magic or something. And that's actually what Black Adam says, is he calls his powers magic. That's another thing that's rather curious about the story. And I'm going to be getting into a lot more over on my other video. I just wanted to kind of get a good start to give you guys kind of an idea. And here's a depiction of how they did this in ancient Egypt. Of course, a little bit different than the movie, but I think this relates to Gilgamesh, which his tomb was moved from Euphrates River to beneath the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid. I think it's referring to the as you would say, guy, anti to the King of Kings, who is, and when people see this word, they think against, which of course is true, but it also is referring to someone who's trying to mimic or be like, but in a false manner. So when you see this movie Black Adam and how it has very clear symbolism that points to the King of Kings himself by being a second, of course, Adam, and also it kind of points to Moses and Egypt and their whole thing, their whole plight in Egypt. It also points to, at the same time, ancient Egypt and their divine council, their pantheon of gods. So it's showing you that it's an inversion of the truth in that respect. But I kind of like the fact that you could actually look at the movie both ways, kind of, because it's very obvious at the end that he's fighting evil. Because, like I said, if you look at the guy at the end, he literally looks like the devil. He's literally fighting the devil at the end of the movie. So, I mean, you could look at it both ways with the movie. You know what I mean? I could see how you could actually paint it both ways, but you can see how they're trying to bring in the fallen, of course, divine council or pantheon, the ancient Egyptian pantheon, as the beings with the power that is given to Black Adam. And of course, this being that he goes against here is given powers literally from Lucifer himself. Actually, it's 5 different beings, but of course, the way they mention it is just obviously fake. I'll explain it more in the other movie or other video that I make, but it's clear they didn't really put a lot of thought into it with regards to how demonology works or something. They just kind of like, oh, what's some names we can throw in there? Okay, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. You know what I mean? It's like that. Completely not linear in their understanding of how it's supposed to work and stuff. But at any rate, it's a movie. It's a comic book. You know what I mean? It reminds me of The Matrix, because The Matrix, you can look at The Matrix the same way. Neo could be the King of Kings in a sense, but it also has these undertones of Gnosticism in it, and the same with this movie as well, but from the ancient Hebrew standpoint. And at any rate, I like I said, I'm going to get into all the rest of what I was saying there. I'm going to be getting into a number of things with Gilgamesh and stuff over in the other video too. Kind of want to see what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.
Why was everything so giant in the past? I believe it was because of the atmospheric conditions being different, like there being 2 or 3 more atmospheres of pressure and things of this nature. Now look at all these skulls here. I mean, obviously they're not the same creatures, and apparently there's some differences between them. Now, a lot of people point to evolution for weird things like this, but that's not the case. That doesn't explain this type of stuff here. This looks like DNA manipulation. It looks like a hybrids, okay? Messing with the genetic code. Star people, fallen angels, mating with humans, manipulating the genetic code. Hide and obscure these type of evidences. It's because it doesn't fit their model. To have stories of, or legends or myths as they call it, of giants or dragons in nonfiction literature, in historical documents. Alexander the Great indicating he saw dragons when he was out doing various battles. And we have many stories of the ancient past of giant men. And then we also have bones. We have evidence of giant men living. But we're told it's all fairy tale, it's fantasy, because it doesn't fit the evolutionary model, which tends to discount any other type of historical evidence that doesn't fit it. It's kind of amazing, but we have these evidences and they ignore them. We have 60 plus stories in various cultures of a worldwide deluge, a worldwide flood. We have 60 plus cultures that indicate star people came down and messed with the genetic code and made giant humans. that look different, that have 6 fingers, that have double rows of teeth, that have weird shaped skulls. And then we also have proof of animal hybrids even. We even have historical stories, but they're all called legends and myths. That they're not real, they're fake. They're fairy tales. But then we find historical evidences of it. It's kind of amazing. We find archaeological evidence of it, and we just discount all of it. It's just fake, it's made up. There never were giant men. That's why we have all these bones that prove we did. You know what I mean? You can see with modern day giant men that even though they are a lot bigger than the standard person today, they usually only get to maybe 10 foot tall. Okay? And I think a lot of the reason why you found bones in the ancient past where there were men that were much larger is due to the fact that there was a different conditions, environmental conditions. I believe that there was water that was underneath the earth that broke forth. That wasn't on earth before that. It was underneath in the earth's mantle. And we actually have proof that there's as much as an Arctic Ocean worth of water currently in the earth's mantle. We actually have scientific proof of this already. There's a certain scientist that actually published it in a peer-reviewed journal, which I know atheists love to mention peer-reviewed journals as if it's really relevant. But there was a scientist who has proven that we have as much or more as an Arctic Ocean worth of water underneath the Earth's mantle. I believe that the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and all the different ridges you see around the world with plate tectonics, I believe that at one time these broke forth and water came from them. And that's why you find them in the middle of the ocean. And also you see where it sort of fits the shape of the continents as well. And with this in mind, and then also noting that a lot of these ancient texts indicate that there was water above the earth and there was water beneath the earth that broke forth. With these two in conjunction, it could have caused the earth to have 2 times the atmospheric pressure, similar to a hyperbolic chamber. And hyperbolic chambers are used today to heal people very quickly. You know, something that might take 2 months to heal will only take a week to heal in a hyperbolic chamber. Some very serious injury on your leg or something. So if you actually lived in 2 to 3 atmospheric pressure, you could run miles and never get winded. Okay? People could grow to a very large height, even naturally. Now, here's the thing, okay? We have scientific proof today that you can combine, and actually a lot of these people you see here that are very large, they have no inhibitor in their DNA to keep them from growing. The only reason they only reached about 10 foot tall is because of our atmospheric pressure and other conditions in our environment. So if there was different conditions, they could have maybe grown to 20 foot tall or 30 foot tall if the conditions were right, if there was no inhibitor in their DNA. As we see with dinosaurs, they're just lizards that just kept growing. Okay, now we have some weird stuff for you to consider. Look at these arc-shaped plateaus on the center of all 4 continents. Okay, it's very interesting. And why is it we find that the highest peak is right down the direct center of it? Okay, And we find blonde-haired people living in these regions, okay? Even if 95% of everybody else has dark hair, such as Aborigines or whatever, just in this one area, we find blonde-haired people. And they're usually taller, and they have some very interesting structures that they've created as well on top of these plateaus. Why is it like this? Well, this is too coincidental. These are not naturally made. These are man-made, and they're very, very massive. So you have to explain this one. How did this happen? Why is it we have all these weird things on the earth that I can easily, readily show you that no evolutionary biologist can explain? They can't explain any of this stuff. This is evidences that they completely and utterly ignore. I mean, I could show you hundreds of dinosaurs living with man. Why is it that this type of evidence is ignored? Why is it ignored? Why is it discounted? Matter of fact, I think I'll make a video about that next. Evidences for dragons among men. I couldn't find the fifth continent's arc center for the 120-degree arc, and couldn't find the arc until someone pointed it out to him, that there's actually an interesting area in South America where there's all blonde-haired people. And there's this odd plateau of a square. And then he had noticed that the Andes Mountains make a natural arc. And it all works out the same as with the other continents. It's quite intriguing how all these arc centers have people with blonde hair that seem to go against what all the other people around them have. And these raised plateaus with odd buildings and odd temples built on them. What does this all mean? Where did this come from? Could this have been Noah's sons moving to the different continents and establishing a base, I guess you could say, for the rest of the continent to be fruitful and multiply? What do you think? Why was everything so giant in the past? I believe it was because of the atmospheric conditions being different, like there being 2 or 3 more atmospheres of pressure and things of this nature. Now look at all these skulls here. I mean, obviously they're not the same creatures, and apparently there's some differences between them. Now, a lot of people point to evolution for weird things like this, but that's not the case. That doesn't explain this type of stuff here. This looks like DNA manipulation. It looks like a hybrids, okay? Messing with the genetic code. Star people, fallen angels, mating with humans, manipulating the genetic code